One.
All right. Hi, everyone. Bradford Ferguson and Matt Smith here. Wanted to give a quick update on some of the recent developments in the Chinese vehicle market. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with some of the bigger trends going on there. There's been a lot of increased competition with new EV models being introduced and also concerns about the broader economy and some of the COVID shutdowns and the way that that's impacted EV sales. But I think one of the potentially more overlooked factors is a proposed rule, which was going to be implemented on June 30th, which would have tightened some emissions for older ICE vehicles, which led to some discounting and some other things that I think might have pulled forward some demand for ICE vehicles to the detriment of EV sales. So that's something we'll explore briefly in this video after we go through the disclaimer.
Awesome. I was putting it up while you were giving that great intro. It's great to have Matt Smith with us on Rebellion Air. Matt's going to be with us for the duration. He's joined us full time. So Rebellion Air is a brand of Halter Ferguson Financial. It's where we help people who have concentrated positions. So we'll get right into it here. And I want to show the difference in the emission standards, what's triggering this. And what's happened is there's a fair number of models that do not qualify for these tighter China standards. And the Chinese standards are a 50% lower hydrocarbon, 40% lower nitrous oxide, and 33% lower particulate matter over the Euro 6 levels. So there's a chunk of vehicle models that meet these Euro 6 levels, but don't meet the China 6B targets. So what happened, according to the story, is that these models that didn't qualify went on huge discount. I would call it a panic sale, where it was reported that some of these went on sale for 50% off. So you have these Chinese buyers who they may be a higher end buyer and may be tempted by the European models, but they're also potentially a full battery electric vehicle buyer. So you had these gas cars, these diesel cars go on a huge discount, and people are buying those. They're buying that incrementally, and they're putting off their EV purchases. And that, this is called a substitution effect, where people might switch between two things. It's also what's called a pull forward of demand, where you're pulling from the future to the present, and this can cause some distortions in the market, and people aren't really talking about this. I think it's a factor in what's happening in China. There's also been a huge drop in lithium prices. I'll just show that real quick. And the full battery electric models for BYD are down rather substantially versus November. So this is a lithium carbonate price down by more than 2/3 since where it was. Matt, maybe you want to give a disclaimer about this market, though.
Yeah, so just with the lithium price, I mean, the huge spike and the drop that we saw in lithium carbonate spot prices in China, it is just worth noting that that's a kind of thinly traded spot price there. Most of the volume of lithium sales in China are through bilateral contracts. So any kind of mismatch between supply and demand that has to clear on the spot market can create pretty wild and volatile swings. So my sense is that there's a lot more the realized prices among the major players are probably going to be somewhere in between the peak and the trough, and will be sustained at those levels for a lot longer. And then once those contracts come up for renewal, I would imagine they're going to be, we'll see what the spot market looks like then, but I would imagine they'll potentially be a little bit higher, probably not at the peak levels again. And of course, nobody really knows, so it's a bit of speculation. But just to point out that the spot market has some inherent limitations with extrapolating too much from it.
Mm-hmm.
But to Bradford's point, it's with ICE vehicles in general being subsidized or slashed with their prices so significantly, a lot of would-be EV buyers are in the very short term. I mean, we're only talking about 6 to 12 months before these rules get into place in early 2023. It was initially planned to be in place in June 30th. Potentially, it might be January 1st now. We'll have to wait and see when the final rules come out. But this is a very short-lived kind of demand pull forward, as Bradford said, for ICE cars. And whenever we get through this period where this discounting has really taken shape, I think then we'll be in a more normalized period where EVs in general will have a lot more preferential, not preferential treatment, but more reasonable pricing power relative to this short-term discounting for like strange regulatory reasons. So it may be a good news for all Chinese EV manufacturers, I would say, Tesla included.
I'm going to share these BYD numbers, and maybe we clean this up a little bit in post, but the BYD is the Han and the Tang and the CL. So the Han is it's more of a higher end sedan, starts around like 42,000 maybe, and the CL is like around 30,000. So this CL may be more of a Model 3 competitor, but I think it's smaller. And I think the Han is a little larger. But you see, November is the second month of a quarter, and the Han dropped from 32,000 to 12,000 in February. I don't think March improved a ton. Maybe it's a little on the Han. And the Tang, which is the Model Y competitor, dropped from 20K to 12K. And the CL also dropped by 50%. Those are really big drops. Yes, we saw the Model Y drop substantially as well. I'm not sure how much of that is because of exports, but I think Tesla held firm for the entire quarter in China. So Tesla's March sales compared to December, so third month of the quarter, the March sales were significantly higher. Wasn't it something like 71,000 for Model 3 and Y combined in March?
It was somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah. 72 something was what came to my mind. I could be wrong, but yeah, it was certainly pretty strong. And I think, I mean, staying flat quarter over quarter in Q1 is a huge victory in my mind. I mean, if you look at the BYD revenue, Q1 to Q4, it dropped pretty significantly. So a lot of the Chinese EV makers were really struggling in Q1 for many reasons, like we said, the economy, the shutdowns. But we think that this pull forward of ICE demand could be another contributing factor that's being overlooked.
Yeah, the BYD models that got hit hardest were the full battery electric vehicle. Their hybrids didn't get hurt as much. So it's my paranoid theory that this is a big explainer for lithium prices in China, because BYD, I think, is the largest incremental buyer of lithium in China, just based off of how much they've spiked up in their growth. And you had this sudden retrenchment, and it kind of looks like the lithium chart, but maybe correlation is not causation. We do want to show these articles where the dealers are raising a stink and essentially got the regulators or the lawmakers to push back. So they're looking to postpone the implementation of these 6B standards to January 1st, 2024. Car dealers are saying that they're at risk of like hundreds of thousands of cars being able to be unsold. So this is a pretty substantial thing that's moving the car market in China. And I just wanted to bring it to people because I didn't feel like anybody was talking about this when we talked about the decline in EVs in China for BYD or others. And lithium prices. So, so these are the articles where they're talking about delaying things because of the car dealers. I'm not sure if Chinese used car dealers can no longer sell these vehicles. I kind of doubt that would be the case. I'm guessing it'd be the case for new vehicles, but there's some there's some dealers in China who will just take a new car and drive it 100 miles or whatever they do, and then they'll sell it as used. And that's also how they hide discounting for BYD and NIO and others. That's what I've heard. Conjecture, but what they'll do is they'll just take the car and say it's used, and then give a 20% discount instead of discounting the price of new cars, because Chinese consumers get really upset when prices suddenly drop. You see people protesting at car shows, or they'll go to the dealer lot or the showroom and get on top of the car, stomp on the hood.
It is culturally a much stronger, I think, passion than in most Western countries, where everyone cares about price, but I think very few Americans or Europeans are going to be protesting if a company suddenly drops prices by 10 or 20% after you buy. But it is the idea of getting a deal on things is very much prized in Chinese culture. So it is a difference that is important to take into account, that just continuing to drop prices, this is in the background of what Tesla is doing of dropping prices globally. If there's an expectation that they're going to continue doing that, then it could cause further delays of purchases from Chinese consumers. I actually did get in my Twitter DMs a note from somebody who canceled their Model Y order that they were scheduled to take delivery of because they were expecting future price cuts. So not only can you have this potential of future of just the customers delaying on the expectation of future price cuts, but then if you do have, let's say you drop prices by 20% in China overnight, you've got a very real prospect of boycotts or protesting and something of that sort, and just people who might feel tainted by the brand a little bit for having been swindled or paying more than they felt like they should have. So it's a delicate balancing act that Tesla needs to manage here.
Yep. You also see it with Chinese real estate, where it's very untenable to try and lower prices, but they are dealing with some lower prices now on real estate. Did we talk about Tesla's China idling of 2 days?
I don't think we did talk about that yet, actually. Yeah. So yeah, there was a speculation that China might be shut down for a 5-day holiday at the end of April and into early May. This is, I think, especially interesting because this is a holiday that they have not historically shut down for. So it would be the first time that Tesla had ever done this. A lot of people in the Tesla Twitterverse are just saying, well, they don't want to avoid paying the overtime, or they're being nice to their employees. What's so wrong with that? And I think on the surface there is nothing wrong with that, but it's whether there is this trend, as Troy Teslike has pointed out, that he believes there is overcapacity in Shanghai relative to the demand that they need between domestic and exports. So if that's true, and you start seeing the Shanghai plant shutting down for holidays, which they have not shut down for historically, and we did get some information that it was probably only today, May 1st and May 2nd, that's going to be shut down. So 2 days rather than the initially reported 5. But if you get more shutdowns later on in May or in June, as Troy expects that we will, then you're actually kind of cutting against Tesla's mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. So in this whole conversation of price cuts and advertising, the whole goal, I think, of everybody is to maximize the output and sell as many EVs as possible. And so idling plants is clearly not the way to do that. Yeah. So we don't know exactly where the facts will land on this. Very well could be the case that we don't see any further shutdowns, and this really was just a one-time blip in the service of employee morale. But if we do see more of this, I think it does potentially throw some fuel on the fire that the demand issues could be more significant than maybe we've been hoping.
Yeah. Technically, there was a shutdown in May of 2020, but it may have been COVID related. The Model 3 was ramping up, and likely in May it was going from 1 shift to 2. So if it shut down at that time, I think it was related to that, because that's a really critical time
Yeah.
to not do that. So yeah, we're gonna head out, but I'm gonna show you this last thing, rebellionaire.com. It's where you can find out more. You can book a call to chat with me. I could tell you more about what we do for rebellionaires who are, have a heavy concentration in a stock, such as Tesla or whatever it may be. We can help you out, and Matt and I have a little bit of experience with Tesla over the years.
And concentration.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's been good talking with you, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.